Hi, my name's Dan. I'm with Madstad Engineering, and we're going to go through a quick video today on the installation of our windshield kit for the 2021 Pan American. First thing we want to do is we want to take off the stock windshield that's already on here. Very simple. Just 4 screws we'll take it off. The next thing we want to do is we want to remove the cowl that's in the front here. So if you just take both your hands onto the side of it and just pull it towards you, it comes right off. And the next thing we want to do is take off these side deflectors that are already on the stock mount right here. Simply 4 screws, take it off. Now in this case, we will be reusing and reinstalling these. So we want to put these onto the, over to the side, make sure that we don't lose them. And I always like to keep the screws with the parts so I know exactly that they're going back onto the same piece. So the next thing we're going to do is for the stock windshield cage that's here, and we're going to remove just these 2 back ones on the other side also. So let's do that right now. The one thing we do have to do is we want to make sure that we take off this front deflector. You might be able to disconnect things with it, but it's really tough. So this is really just the better way to do it. But if you start on these bottom ones first, get those loosened up really good. Now once we have this apart, you can see that we can see our display plug is right here. And we also have a USB port that's on the side here. Both of those have to be disconnected. You want to be very careful with these tabs on the sides. They're just plastic. They do snap fairly easy, so we can tilt our display a little bit and it comes right off. On the USB plug, you take this cover cap off first. There is a retaining washer that goes on the outside of it that holds it in place. Just undo that. And now that plugs out also. So the only thing holding the factory cage on now are the 2 front screws that are still mounted, and we're going to go ahead and undo those and take the cage completely off. And when you take this last one off, you definitely want to have your hand on this cage so it doesn't drop, because the display is still attached. We don't want anything to happen to that, so use a little bit of caution when you're doing this. And there you have it. The factory windshield cage is off. And now we're going to remove the 2 tabs that hold on the display. The easiest way to do this is if you had really anything that's sort of L-shaped, to press against these small little metal pieces that are down here. It's a plug that's got some wings on it to make sure that when it gets pressed into it, they're aligned. So when you put these back in, that's one of the major things you have to check, is make sure that these are aligned. If not, they're very stiff. You'll have to probably use a tool, a wrench or something to hold it in place and turn it to get both of those tabs aligned like this. Okay? We're going to take this other one out. And all I'm doing is I'm just giving it a good press. Actually, it's pretty out already, but you can see the tab is still there. And all I'm going to do is press to get it out. And there we go. And so we have both the tabs out. Okay, so now we're going to start doing our assembly of the Madstad system on, for the Pan America. And then we're going back to our, what I call it a front deflector. And we're going to use the same kind of cover. Now we're going to take our 2 brackets, and we want to make sure that the orientation is that the knob is on the outside, and of course our windshield is going to go onto this part of the bracket. We definitely want to make sure that we get our arm through the slot here so that it's going to look a lot like like the stock system, and this is what we do. We just slide each one in. We do have our knobs on the outside. That's a good thing. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to take this tab and we're going to push it through the side here, and we're going to end up with something like this. Okay? So now what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to attach the 2 brackets. And we have a back plate that goes on the back of it, which is this right here. Our orientation with this is going to set like this. And we're going to make sure that our mounting points, this is where our display is going to go back into. We're going to make sure that that's near the top. We're going to take our M6 torque screw along with an M6 washer and an M6 lock washer. And these are what we're going to use to attach. We're going to take the screw first, put it through the back plate, and slide it through this first hole. On the back side will be a washer and the lock nut. When we do want to tighten it a little bit. We know we're in good shape here. We got them in our space that we want them to, so we're going to tighten them up. And there we go. Okay, so we've got our front deflector in place. We got our brackets in place, and they're attached together. Look good there, right there. What we have to do though, our windshield is actually going to be mounted in these two parts of the bracket and in these two, but you can see there's no well nut for these. I'm going to show you how to put those in really quick. This is sometimes will stump people, but you want to take the part with the flange and you want to come through the back side of the hole and then just push and twist a little bit, and you can see it goes right in. There you go. And then just push it back down. So our mounting screws for the windshield are actually going to go through these holes right here. Okay, this is the front. The next thing we want to do is we want to remount our display. But as you can see, the mounting holes for our plate are really small because we've come up with something slightly different. So in our display, you definitely want to make sure that the orientation is correct. The plug's going to be at the bottom. And you're simply going to take a well nut and put it on through the outside of the mount for the display. Much simpler than what we had before with these other plugs that Harley use. So we're going to put our well nuts in there, and we're going to slide it onto the bracket. It's a little tough because the well nut's obviously rubber and it doesn't give as easily, but you can see we can get it on there. And then just start pushing it in, screwing it in, and what will happen is as the screw goes in, it causes the well nut to expand. You can see it on this side a little bit. You can't see the well nut, but we're through our mount, and it will cause the well nut to expand and grab on to the mount of the display. And as it starts to tighten up, it's going to, the well nut's going to expand. You'll feel the tension on the screw because it'll get tighter to screw it in, but you start to feel it. That well nut starts to expand and it makes it tighter and really grabs onto it. A couple more turns on the other side here, and we'll be ready to remount this back onto the bike. Okay, so we're all finished with the Madstad cage. We've replaced the stock Harley Davidson cage, and we've put it into our front deflector. So we're ready to go. We got our arms set up, ready to go. Our display is on, it's ready to go. So we're going to move over to the bike here. And again, we're going to use these small screws to attach just the front side of the bracket so we can tilt the cage and get to the plugs that are in the back. So we'll start that way. You definitely want to make sure you keep your hand on this cage until you get these screws at least secured, because if it falls, it could really damage not only the display, but it might actually damage the brackets too. And remember, we're just doing the front screws right here in the very front so we can tilt the cage and get to our display connection. It's in the back. And I'm definitely going to keep these screws loose. I don't want to tighten them up yet because I'm going to swivel forward. So we've got our cage, the Madstad cage now on the bike, but we only use the 2 front screws because we want to be able to tilt the display forward so that we can get to the back of the display and hook up the connection that goes to that. So we're going to show you that right now. I've got the cage tilted up, but I'm going to take this adapter and I'm going to slide it right in. And it clips right in. And as soon as you do that, the Harley Davidson display will turn on and you'll see that. The next thing we're going to do is hook up this USB cable again. So this is a little bit tricky, but we're going to get back here. And this is where we're trying to get this plug through this hole. It's a little bit of a tight. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but it does go in. There is a flat side to both the plug and the hole. There's a small flat part of it, and of course those have to line up for the plug to go in. Now I'm just going to take our cap, put that ring around here, and put this little retaining washer back on to hold it all together. Make sure it's nice and tight so it doesn't fall out on you, and put our cap back in there. And it's done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the screws for this hole right here and on the other side, and then our cage will be solid and be attached to the bike. And so what we're doing, we're just continuing on here. We've plugged in our display, and we've also reattached our USB plug to the side of the cage so that you can hook up an accessory to it. Very, very nice spot for it. We've got those 2 reconnected, and now we're just screwing in the 4 torque screws that hold the cage in place on the bike. These you actually do want to make sure they're nice and tight. It'll help make sure everything's nice and secure, and you won't have so much movement of the windshield. Everything will be real solid. So these 4 especially, you definitely want to make sure they're nice and tight. The next thing we want to do is we're going to secure our front deflector. As you can see, we're going into these sockets right here. There's one here in the bottom. Okay, so we're going back to the mounting of the front deflector, and I just want to just verify and explain. We were normally using the factory screws, but we realized we need to use the M5x20s that are included in the kit. So please use these. Hang on to the factory screws just in case, along with the other parts that we haven't reused, okay? We're gonna continue on, get these screws on here, get this front deflector set up, and then we'll be ready for the windshield. One thing about well nuts is when you are attaching the screw through it and you're turning the screw through it, it causes the back of that well nut to swell up, and it actually kind of grabs it from the back side. We use those here for our windshield. They work fantastic. And in this case, in this application, they're working great too. They really work well and last for a long time. Okay, now we're ready for the side deflectors. We're going to put these back on before we put the windshield on. So as you can see, they are shaped to fit on one side or the other. Okay, next and lastly is our windshield. All right, so we're ready to put on our windshield. And there's a couple things I want to point out really quick. You can preset the screws and the washers before you put the windshield on. Makes it a little bit easier. You're going to put the screw, then a plastic washer, put the screw through the windshield, and then use the fat rubber washer to hold it in place. And you'll do that on all four, of course. The second thing is, on your brackets, you want to make sure that they're tight and they're level, and that there's no angle to them, or they're at the same angle, because sometimes if they're off, you're going to have trouble with the windshield. So, and you're simply going to take the windshield, line up the screw to the well nuts that are in here, get your screwdriver ready, and just tighten them up. Don't let go of the shield, because obviously we don't want it to fall. And I'm just going to put these in tight enough to hold it in place, and then do the other two. So we have a secure windshield here, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten them up the rest of the way. So the last thing we want to do is we put our cowl back on. As you can see, there are plugs that are going to these sockets right here. So the best thing to do is just align them from the top. And you can see that they're there. And just give it a little shove. And it's right back into place. And there you have it. That's how you do the Madstad windshield for the 2021 Harley Davidson Pan America. Thank you.